Welcome to the Fantasy Boardroom. I am your host, Tycoon, and as always, we are excited to enter the boardroom and discuss another beautiful week of fantasy football. This week is particularly exciting because we finally have our first guest. Took till episode 5, but we have our first guest of the season. We have a member of the Get Right family, the host of the Fantasy Football Tavern, Dynasty Strategist Extraordinaire, and a man with a fine Dutch name, Kendall Van Der Bilt. Welcome, Kendall.
Hey. Thanks for having me on, man. This is a fun addition to my Fantastic Tuesday. I'm ready to talk about it. You got a topic here near and dear to my heart. Always ready to talk about some of these fantastic rookies. Good to be talking football with you, though.
Yes, it is. It's long overdue. I mean, we've had a lot of private discussion, our Get Right group chat, whatnot, but we've both been part of the Get Right team now for a few months, and that we haven't gotten together already is kind of a shame. So I'm happy we're finally doing it. Thank you for, really kind of volunteering last week. Makes it, see, sometimes I have a problem with guests because I hate to ask people for their time. Time is valuable. So, hey, come spend an hour of a weekday evening with me, or however long a show may be that week. So when I don't have to actually put myself out there, ask the question, somebody's just willing to join, it's a beautiful thing. So thank you, Kendall. Now, like you said, topic near and dear to your heart. So week 2's in the books. We've had our week 1 overreactions, our week 1 underreactions. We've seen some of those reactions kind of exponentially, or those concerns and some of the overreactions kind of exponentially grow, and some of that stuff is leveled off. You know, Mark Andrews owners, you can chill a little. But what we're here to do now that we are almost 12% into the season is begin our rookie evaluation process. I think now, while we can't really make any conclusive statements yet, we've got 8 quarters of film that we've been able to view. I think it's fair to begin that evaluation process. So I think we kind of take a look at who has impressed, who's already showing signs of concern, somebody that red flags that maybe we didn't expect to see so early, who maybe we haven't really learned anything about, even if they've gotten a fair amount of playing time. And are there any forgotten and available rookies out there that maybe we should be stashing in our redraft leagues? Because they can be forgotten in redraft at times. In Dynasty, they're all taken, but who's a sneaky ad that maybe we can make in the rookie class? So, you ready?
Let's get it.
We are going to dive right in, and we're going to go straight to your boys, straight to your QB1.
Oh, no.
Caleb Williams, tell us what you're thinking, Kendall. Where are we at with the number 1 pick?
All right. Well, without talking about too many of the other rookies, I just want to compare it across the board. It seemed like a lot of the rookies struggled coming out. I'm not reading too much into it too soon. The only thing I'm reading into it is, okay, we're not CJ Stroud right out the gate. Most aren't. Even the really great quarterbacks don't start out like CJ Stroud. Manning comes to mind, having a pretty brutal rookie season. We've seen this from a number of players. I think Caleb is still every bit as talented as the person that we think he is. But something about the NFL speed, just the initial transition, I think something's not quite clicking. The inaccuracy is pretty real. I think that was big Bill Belichick's kind of slander on him from the preseason. I'm looking at it this way, though. We have a modern preseason that's not real football. A lot of that's gotten stripped away. And I think the first 2 to 3 games are really the real preseason playing football. So I want to give every rookie quarterback at least 4 weeks, and I want to see what improved. Is the coaching staff doing anything to help them out? Justin Fields was a good case study in how to not help your quarterback out for many years, right? And it was less of a take on Justin, more of a take on, I have to give him the inherited baggage that is a coaching staff not ready to handle him yet. So it's still early on Caleb. The inaccuracy does have me a little bit worried, but he never really showed that as a massive tendency in college, so I think it's pretty fixable. The bright spot, if you can call it one, is that he is using his legs to extend plays. It's clearly something he has. It hasn't converted into a lot of production, but I think it can. I definitely saw a lot of, wow, that's a sack for most quarterbacks. This can turn into a completion. So there's definitely something there. He is going to have to turn it around a little bit. We can't be losing too many more games. I still think it's early. I'm not going to go over the board with it. But it's not the most promising start.
I will start by saying I'm still incredibly high on him. I mean, he didn't come in regarded generally as the best prospect we've seen since Andrew Luck at the quarterback position, and I don't think you just lose that in a matter of 2 weeks. And I do agree with you that I think the inaccuracy is a real problem, and I think part of it is back to the speed of the game, just getting adjusted from Pac-12 speed to NFL speed. I believe it was his second interception, I think, was a prime example of that. The one where he escaped, had his jersey ripped, and then chucked it up. I mean, at USC, that's a touchdown every time. No, or not every time, but you get it. I mean, that regularly turns into a home run play for Caleb when he's at USC. The speed of the defensive backs to be able to close in on that pass didn't seem like something he was anticipating on that throw. I think he truly thought that throw was going to land. I forget who the intended receiver was on that particular play. But I think he had that. And I think as he does continue to play and adjust largely to the speed of the game, I truly think that's the biggest factor for him at this point. That will start to come together. So while there have been some not so pretty moments, especially in week one was pretty ugly, despite coming away with the win. Although Titans defense might be a little bit better than at least I perceived coming into the year following the first 2 weeks. So
that's a fair point.
But yeah, and you also make a good point. No preseason. I mean, keeping these guys bubble wrap, not even letting them get a couple series in just to establish any sort of small level of chemistry or rhythm with each other, especially him and the receivers. Like you said, these first 2-3 games really are their preseason. So I'm not panicked in any way. Now, on the redraft side, for fantasy purposes, in a 12-team league, probably not too worried about it. In a 14-team league where you often do need to roster a backup quarterback just because in 14-team leagues, everybody seems to do so, and you could really be in a tough spot should you end up with your quarterback hurt, even in a 1QB 14-team league. I'd be willing to keep him on the bench there. But in Dynasty, I'm still treating him as my Dynasty QB1 of this particular class. And looking forward to what I anticipate will be some wonderful growth moving forward.
Agreed.
I'm still very
in redraft, I'm not, like you mentioned, outside of the 14 team, I'm not holding him anymore. There's definitely some other guy. I would drop him for any of the current producers. Right. For like a Sam Darnold, if you're having to go that low because people are rostering backups and they shouldn't. I just don't see the path to immediate production. And if I do, I still think it's a typical rookie trajectory where you're probably going to get similar numbers out of these low end QB1s. That were kind of outside of our fringe, top 12. They were more like a top 15, 16 quarterback. I'm still fine with any of them that have some proven production while they figure it out. So in redraft, I don't think it's, you got to stash them, because I think it's pretty clear the upside is not going to be Mahomes tomorrow. We would have seen that week 1 like we did with CJ. So it's just he's going to need a full year and a full offseason, I think.
And even if it starts to come together for him for real life purposes and it's resulting in success for the Bears, I think honestly that's going to end up leaning more into the running game for the Bears. I mean, that's going to be their formula for winning, because they're going to rely a lot more on that ground game. So I don't think, the fantasy ceiling is really going to be there as rookie year, especially based on what we've seen these first 2 weeks. On the flip side, though, we do have Jayden Daniels, the number 2 pick over in DC, who does appear to have a nice fantasy ceiling. We saw that in week 1 with 2 rushing touchdowns. Would he have almost 80 rushing yards in week 1?
Yeah, I think maybe 78 or something like that. It was up there.
It was pushing it. And in this past week, a lot less, kind of an ugly game between the Commanders and Giants. It was really kind of funny that the Commanders didn't punt all game, score a touchdown, field goal, nothing but field goals. Truly unbelievable. And what was the stat? It is the first time a team in the Giants scored 3 touchdowns, failed to allow a touchdown, and lost the game. Or conversely, a team gave up 3 touchdowns without scoring 1 and won the game for the Commanders. Just unreal. So even in spite of the offense not scoring a touchdown and just a lot of intermediate length drives to get into field goal range, a couple of close ones, he scored 13.44 fantasy points. So for me, I'm kind of viewing this as probably his floor game or close to it. Short of, eventually he'll have one of those really bad turnover games. He'll throw 3 picks and fumble. Like one of those will happen. So, but you take the outlier out of there. This is probably what you're looking at on the low end on a weekly basis. So from any quarterback, if you're looking at close to 15 points as your floor, I'm pretty thrilled about that, and still incredibly high in him from a dynasty perspective as well.
Yeah, he's a big riser for me, actually, because I think there's 2 big ways you can look at that game. All right, the one, if you're going to give him a slight negative on his early record here, you could say, look, some games NFL, it just feeds you a sacrificial offering, and it is on you to beat the living crap out of them. All right. The Giants are that punching bag. All right. You're supposed to throw college numbers at them. Right. I think a lot of people are. So you could say, hey, but this is the matchup where he's supposed to put up some decent passing numbers. Right. And the touchdowns didn't come, and some of the deeper field stuff didn't. On another side, right, that's one take, and I think that's a valid take. I do think you can kind of look at it and say, okay, look, we were understanding some things about him. He is afraid to throw downfield, right? And we're getting really comfortable into the Bo Nixie check down stuffs. On the other hand, virtually no turnovers, no mistakes, a lot of poise, a lot of willingness to just call what the coach wants. The coach said, hey, let's dial it a little bit less in the run, which I think was more of a don't get hurt while we're working on stuff, right? And 2, you're always going to have those legs. Let's work on, we're not winning a Super Bowl this year. Let's work on what we need to work on to ultimately take another step. So trust me, I know what I see in the legs. And what did we see? A quarterback that was, I think he gave it, there was the runs where you just got to run for your life. And there was I'm going to find a way to get this to somebody, even if it's a yard. And I think, one, that's a good coach quarterback. It shows some coachableness.
Yes.
Right? It shows I am not going to do this to my teammates and play, old school Favre style. It's either a touchdown or it's a pick. I mean, it's nothing in between. It was, I'm going to lead a scoring drive, and our team's coming away with points on every possession. These are great qualities of a leader, right? That you need him to be for the team. This is someone you can build around. That lack of mistakes, all he's had to do is get a little bit more poised in the game, and those all turn into touchdowns. I wouldn't expect the touchdowns are never sticky, right? It's never a real sticky stat, even for quarterbacks, right? And clearly it looks like they're going to lean on the run game. But I'm hugely encouraged by the completion percentage, even if it wouldn't lead to a lot of yards. I think it's going to lead to an offense that can move the chains. There's going to be brighter days ahead. But like I said, if this is the floor game, not just with the rushing and the non-getting turnovers, but this offense is going to put some points on the board. I'm also extrapolating that to Terry McLaurin. It's not as bad as it might be for some other guys. There's going to be some better days. Nobody's just going to let Brian Robinson run for 150 yards every game. Eventually that's going to have to get stopped. And when it does, so out of all the rookie quarterbacks, Jayden Daniels for me is the one I feel the most confident in saying, even for dynasty production year 1, you're going to get it. And then from the redraft world, I think he's top 6-7 quarterback. He's probably not really hitting the top tier guys, but he can absolutely produce a 30-point a game week, which some of these pocket passers, even if they finish, super high because of their consistency, they're not delivering you that 30-point game. So arrows up for Jayden. I was really impressed by what some might look at as a low scoring game.
Agreed. Incredibly so. And yeah, you make a good point. I mean, the lack of hero ball tendencies thus far, I think, is incredibly encouraging for, 1, his mentality, and 2, the coaching that he is receiving and the relationship that he has with the coach tonight. Because at LSU, I wouldn't say he was always playing hero ball necessarily, but I mean, these are cocky college QBs at times. I mean, they know they're good. And they flash it.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, and he's kept himself very composed at this level through 2 games so far.
Jalen Hurts had a little bit of that, right? They were like, oh, there's some Dak to this guy. He's you can get him in front of a presser, right? You can get him in the media, and he's going to handle it really, really nicely. These guys don't bust nearly at the level that the guys that have a little something extra to say or a little flash on the field. I just think when they're locked into the badge and the job, type of system, these are guys that are going to extend their careers and get a lot more play and a lot more respect from their teammates who do this for a living, and I think that's a good sign.
This already has me higher on him from a reality perspective. I mean, it was always high on him fantasy-wise. As far as an actual NFL quarterback, I say I was optimistic, but certainly didn't feel certain about what the outcome was going to be for him. Now I have expectations now after just these 2 games.
Gotta love it for Washington fans. They've had a brutal run of it.
Good for them.
This feels good. I'm happy for him.
I know back in as a 49er fan, ancient history, we have some great quarterback tradition, but take out, Montana Young, between our 2 franchises, we're no stranger to going through a devastating quarterback carousel. I mean, just it feels like you're never getting off that ride when you can't find the guy. So thrilled for Washington fans. And also, I see your guys' questions out there, Rafi and Perry. We're going to talk about one more quarterback, and then I will get to your questions. So we do have one more active rookie quarterback that is starting, can't talk. We have one more starting rookie quarterback to discuss, and that is one Bo Nix. And you mentioned some Bo Nixy throws as we were discussing these previous guys. So what do you have to say about Bo Nix himself?
Not looking great early on, but it's still very early on. The alarming things for a guy like Nix is I already when scouting him, I thought his ceiling was a little bit low. What I thought his top tier comp might have been is just, can he be a decent game manager, right? That maybe has a little bit of athleticism, a lot of snaps under his belt, so maybe he can step in and produce right away. But I was whereas I'm okay with Jayden with a lot of the dink and dunk stuff because I know the real explosive element of his game with his legs is already it's already installed for the most part. With Nix, I want to be able to see something happen, and I didn't see the something X factor that I think he could have showed with how much of experience he has. The amount of dump offs that he's doing. When I don't love their wide receiver room, but I think they have some talent to kind of make some things happen. And I just didn't see enough of it. So it's like a slight arrow down. At the same time, I do think the coaching staff was delivering him in a way where it was going to be a very grindy sort of, that was just going to be the game script. So I think the pieces around him aren't exactly helping him to elevate or separate. The second game hurt worse because there was a lot more mistakes, a lot more, that's a rookie play type of stuff. Still too soon. But what I've learned is redraft is that's not a thing. Definitely on the radar. From a dynasty perspective, it's not great in year 1. It's probably a solid dynasty asset. But it's pretty raw. I want to see a few more games, and I want to see what the down the field stuff looks like. This is the type of fixability where, if he opened it up a little bit and looked good, I would forgive a lot of this. I'm having some nerves though. I was expecting him with the coaching and the staff and the amount of snaps. I was expecting more from Bo Nix. I guess I'm feeling a little like expectations were missed a little bit.
And for me, admittedly, this is coming from a place of bias because I wasn't a fan of his even in college. So definitely wasn't a fan of his as a prospect coming into the league. Thought the Broncos taking him at 12 was malpractice. And so this actually doesn't change anything for me because it's about what I expected, because that is who he is. He is a quick, short passer. That's what he thrived on at Oregon. Not to say he didn't have some other impressive plays. He doesn't start for a major programs like Auburn and Oregon for a stretch of years without having some talent, right? But I just don't think he has NFL talent. I don't think he has NFL level decision-making ability. That is probably my biggest hang-up. I'm sure he doesn't have a plus arm necessarily, but he has a good enough arm. He can throw downfield. Courtland Sutton can make things happen. He can throw. I would love to actually see him throw some 50-50 balls to see if Sutton can make some things happen for him, maybe build his confidence a little bit for his sake. But that's not really his game, and it's hard to see him and his style have any real success here at the NFL level. Like you said, I think high-end game manager is probably his ceiling. in the NFL. And if he can actually achieve that, I think that'd be a wonderful accomplishment. If he can, I mean, he'll get his rookie year. I would actually say he probably will get 2 years, but after seeing Bryce Young take a seat yesterday, I'm not even sure of that. So
Yeah,
we'll see how far he gets through year 2. Nothing has surprised me that I've seen. Nothing to make me any more concerned than it was to start, and certainly nothing that makes me think I was off base. So, but you're right, we still got to give it a little more time, much like the patience, I guess, that I was lending towards Caleb and saying, hey, these are his first couple of games. It's preseason games. For all intents and purposes, I'll be fair to Bo. We'll treat it that same way. But
we'll see some different game scripts too. I would say I want to see what
keep
does
expectations low. That's all I would say.
I'm definitely not raising. Yeah, we'll have to see.
Well, before we dive into the next position group, or even the next player, let's just get to these questions real quick. Keep our wonderful viewers engaged. We'll start with our boy Rafi Baum. Dropping Caleb and Stafford for Carr and Darnold across a few leagues. Yay or stick it out?
I know I can answer with hardcore. I'm in the same boat, and I think across 4 or 5 leagues. My standard, like when I find a pocket, particularly at the late 11-12 turn, I was just doing I like all the position player values. I like the way my board reads, and I'm going to have to go get all my guys at the turn. I was consistently going late quarterback, like very late quarterback. Like Jayden had to fault me at a value because I was going even later. I was going Stafford and Goff in particular. I liked their schedules and I liked their weapons, and I think they could be a top 10 quarterback and I could get them for free. And I've dropped all of them immediately. I already dropped them last week for Baker, but if I had kept them, I would immediately. Darnold above Carr for me. I like the weapons, and I can't unsee the play that I just saw. Like the talent was absolutely bonkers. And Carr, the offense we thought was going to suck doesn't suck. And having a free 70-yard bomb to Shaheed half the time doesn't hurt your quarterback stats. So I think, I would drop more than just them at this point. I would even go reaching up the board a little bit. I think Carr and Darnold are going to be great plays.
Yeah, I agree with everything Kendall said, actually. I would say if we got some unexpected positive news out of nowhere back surrounding Cup, Stafford is back in the conversation, but in McVay's words, out a while, so I'm going to treat it like it's a while, and with no Puka, no Cup, no Higbee, not that Higbee was ever a huge factor, but, he is on pup to start this year.
Or an offensive line, didn't buy him an O-line. I thought it would, but it's not there yet.
Well, and everybody got hurt in the first week anyways. So I want nothing. Honestly, I think the Rams are already cooked for the year. I think this is just horrible.
It needs to be said. I hate doing that, but I'm there. I'm there with you on it's a lot. It's like it couldn't happen to a nicer group of guys. Like who doesn't want to see a lot of those players just work? But it kind of feels like curtains, man. Although if they can somehow do a ridiculous comeback, they might be a fun team to watch if they have any statistical relevance to make the playoffs at the end of the year.
It'll be interesting to see how they face this adversity. Now, as a 49ers fan, I'm hoping it's not incredibly strongly, at least in terms of wins and losses, but definitely want to see the individual players perform well, and hopefully the injured guys get back to health as soon as they can. Never want to see anybody hurt. Perry, yes, we will take trade questions. Yes, sir. And I see yours down here, so we are going to dive into it, sir. You got offered Nabers, Garrett Wilson, and T. Higgins for Chase. What? Am I reading that correctly? You're being offered all 3 of those players for Jamar Chase, because you should take that offer if that's the case in redraft or dynasty, but that still seems like it can't be correct.
Yeah, Perry, can you give us some context, brother?
If
you're still in there, give us a format and break it down a little bit.
Yeah, that is well. Yeah, I feel like either some information is missing here, or we're missing something. Because in a vacuum, if you're being offered Malik Nabers, Garrett Wilson, and T. Higgins just for Jamar Chase, you should do that yesterday.
Yeah, I don't need it across all formats. Okay, 8-man league.
Oh,
That's
18.
why it's
Okay.
pretty stacked.
I think I would still
you're getting the
do
neighbors
it.
side, right?
Yeah. Honestly, I think I like Neighbors best out of this group right now.
I was just gonna say I like Neighbors over Jamar Chase, like almost straight up at this point.
Almost, right?
Neighbors is
Like,
so we're gonna get to Neighbors a
it's
little
crazy
bit,
that
I
it's a
think, but
question already.
yeah, Wilson's gonna be wheels up later on too. I was
Yeah.
expecting a get right game from him. They just didn't need it. But Rodgers is not stupid enough to think that he's going to do something this year without clicking with Garrett Wilson. It's going to take a second, but it's coming. I'm off of all of the Bengals, man. I'm completely. I've sold all of my shares of Bengals, or I'm in the process of it. Go grab Neighbors.
It's not quite like Rams level, but it's another team. Just the vibes don't feel great surrounding that group. I mean, Chase is upset he hasn't gotten paid. He feels like the Bengals misled him this offseason. T's hurt, also not happy to be playing on the tag. He was expecting to get paid. They let Mixon go, and I know whatever the opinions are, I think he was popular in the room. I don't think that offense wanted to see him leave. But they always start slow, so I'm not going to go that hard into the bad vibes surrounding the team on the Bengals. I mean, under Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow, this is a kind of a standard start. So we'll see where this ultimately leads. But yeah, as far as that trade goes, though, I think I want Neighbors over anybody in that group. Tempted to counter Chase, Amon-Ra, Waddle for CD, Neighbors, Wilson. Well, CD is definitely a league winner over Chase. I think CD over Chase is not even a debatable topic currently. He just is. Amon-Ra and Waddle versus Neighbors and Willis. Yeah, I mean, I think you would come out like, bro, if you counter that, if you have any shot to say, I would be thrilled to be adding CD and Neighbors. I mean, I'm not thrilled to give up Amon-Ra, but in 18 league, I think I'm happier with that threesome than your threesome. What do you think, Kendall?
I tend to agree. I'm cautious on my big 3v3 trades in an 8-team league. Only because I want to win, but I also don't want to completely bury somebody. And we're talking about big names across the board. Someone could really come off bad. But if I have to take a side, right, with all that, I'm taking the CD Neighbors Wilson. I think Waddle is huge down arrow for me.
Chase, that's what makes this easy.
I like Chase and Amon-Ra, but if you're just saying Chase and Amon-Ra against CD and Neighbors. Okay, they're starting to get a little bit closer because I'm on Ra over Neighbors, I think, at that point. But it's close enough that I'm going to stick with the all three assets that I'm probably starting in But close one. I think what we're saying is, look, we'll buy low on Chase, but we're mostly on if you can get good pieces that are also undervalued, do it. We're not saying Chase is bad. We're saying Neighbors is elite, and it's probably there's a buy low window on Neighbors because people aren't realizing how good he'll be in redraft just yet. He could be a top 5 wide receiver.
Or still that concerned about the Giants as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's he's still got the stink of oh, can I get off this boat before it becomes Garrett Wilson last year?
Yeah. Thank you for the love, Pompano. Always appreciate it. Larry, look, I just don't have the time to dive into this tonight with our show, but no, Malik Willis is not the same QB as Lamar Jackson. The show is a proud member, one of the leaders of the Lamar Jackson fan club, and we will not stand for such heresy. Props to Malik for playing well enough to win this past Sunday. A great job by Matt LaFleur is really my takeaway from Sunday in Green Bay. But yeah, no, Malik Willis is not... I wanted to say not in the same universe as Lamar Jackson. I think that's even still disrespectful to Lamar Jackson. So just no, the answer is no. And I'm not going to work to change your mind. Yeah. Just watch football, my friend. That's all I can tell you, bro.
I think it's worth mentioning that Lamar, you got to feel terrible for him. That O-line is maybe the worst in the NFL. It's truly awful to watch. And it's scary. It's scary how much that O-line doesn't get talked about because of how good Lamar is at ad-libbing with his feet. He ad-libs with his feet in a way that rushing quarterbacks don't. Like, it's crazy how comfortable he is in constant motion, and that's why their O-line gets a slight pass, because he's under fire the whole time. He just doesn't always look like it. And even your Kyler Murrays and Hurts look significantly flustered when they're forced into moving, and Lamar just lives there. That I think is one of his more underrated features. But yeah, that O-line's truly devastating. I know we're talking about the rookies, but if we went into other stuff, that O-line is the biggest takeaway for me. The whole team is buried. Zay Flowers gets to be Jalen Waddle's rookie year, though, and catch 1,000 passes 2 yards down the line.
Yeah, Jarvis Landry Redux. Let's go. DJ Moore, Jalen Waddle, PPR. Yeah. I mean, despite Caleb's early struggles, I mean, just without Tua, I'm sorry, there's no way I could put Waddle above Moore. So I agree with you there as well, Kendall. So there's one more rookie QB to just very briefly touch on before we move on to the running backs, and that is Drake Maye in New England. And I just have one simple question for you. Based on what we've seen from the New England Patriots these first 2 weeks and Jacoby Brissett in these 2 starts, how long do you think he'll continue to play? When do we see Drake Maye?
Well, we know it's I didn't think they were going to start him, but mostly because what I thought was going to be a brutal first couple of games of the season apparently isn't as brutal as we thought, I guess. LOL. I thought it was going to be about week 7. Do they have the bye in week 6? I don't have that up in front.
I wanted to say it's actually, I thought it was 7 or 8.
Is it 7 or 8? Maybe it was the 6th. I had penciled in somewhere that their first 6 games were pretty brutal, and then I guess the bye might have been 7 or 8. I think it's probably at no sooner than after the bye, regardless of record. I think they're going to give him a little bit more time, let the other players develop around, and then they'll get him on the field for the second half of the season to get some reps. That's just my feel for it. They're week 14. Okay, I was just thinking the schedule then. Well, if it's not about the bye, then it's at least after that brutal slate of the first 6 games. So I don't think it's any earlier than week maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah, it does ease up after week 6, because then they go into starting week 7, going to Jacksonville, Jets, Titans, Bears, Rams.
Yeah, I think somewhere in that stretch is probably where they make the switch. It's a little too soon to be calling it exactly. Look, I'll put it this way: if they keep winning games, it's not happening this year. They're doing something well over there. But that would be my call.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't know if it'll be quite right there, just because I think even with the loss to Seattle, the near win, I mean, Brissett's looked good enough. He's professional enough. Mayo, tried to combine Gerard and Mayo into one word. Gerard Mayo, look, he's a new coach trying to establish a reputation. He doesn't have one yet. Winning games is significant for him, no matter how it's done, and regardless of long-term project in Drake Maye's development. So, yeah, like you said, if they're winning, being competitive, I don't think he's going to feel motivated to insert Drake Maye in there. That said, going back to that schedule, there is going to be a tough run of games. I don't think the Jets are going to be easy for them. The 49ers won't be easy. The Dolphins, we shall see in week 5, but without Tua, maybe manageable. Texans will not be easy. Another reprieve there with Jacksonville, just a bit. And then back to what are probably some tough defenses again, the Jets and the Titans and the Bears, actually. So I'm thinking probably more like week 11 if we're playing the schedule game and trying to project this, because that's when the defensive slate starts to ease up a little bit.
It's where the mathematical eliminated portion comes in too, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like, once you're mathematically eliminated, I think that allows you the free pass to start your rookie with nothing for him to think about.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I do hope we see him though. I was my thing is like quietly when everyone else was getting really spicy on JJ McCarthy, which I never understood to be fair. No. The hype was on where he was going, not about him. And I don't think that's a really fair representation when scouting someone. But Drake Maye, I was impressed with. I thought he was a guy that, look, if someone's going to pop, I actually thought it could be him from this class. Like his upside is like, he's got a little Justin Herbert in him. You see a little of that wiggle in the preseason. I'm very excited to see what Drake Maye does when he finally gets on the field. He was a guy I was happy to see him slip in the draft process, where he started to go a little bit farther down. And he was definitely someone I was trying to target a little bit, if I could.
Yeah, I'm not as high on him, but I will say I agree with you on the upside part of it. I mean, if he does hit, this guy could be an absolute stud. He's a little bit of a reckless player for my liking, at least at North Carolina he was. So that's probably my biggest concern. I mean, all the traits are there, all the physical tools are there. So it's a matter of if he can put it all together. I was wrong about Justin Herbert. I had some similar concerns about him, and I've never been more wrong about a quarterback in my life than Justin Herbert. So holding that L these last few years, it stopped me from being so bombastic about it. But I will say, and I'm not even going to be able to be harsh on Drake Maye anyways, because even when he ultimately does get inserted, unless it's next year and they've made some skill player improvements, I can't get on him for not being able to have a ton of success with Jalen Polk and Demario Douglas. And come on. Hunter Henry's fine, Ramondre Stevenson's fine back, but that's not what's going to predicate quarterback success. So, yeah. And I don't
we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Nice to see New England have something exciing though. Like I'm a big fan of modern NFL
they
offenses.
Won 6 Super Bowls, in our lifetime. They had plenty. Like I'm not crying a river for New England, nor am I going to be happy for them to have something. They were excited for 20 years. So, you know what?
It'd be fun to throw on the TV and be like, oh, they got a mobile quarterback. This is just like that for me ends the Belichick era. It's like turn on the TV and there's a guy running around the field at quarterback for New England. It's going to feel bonkers and I'm going to love it because then it's not Brady's team anymore.
I wonder how Bill feels when he sees that, when it happens. Because, man, I don't know if you watch Monday Night Football with the Manning cast when the Mannings do it. So Bill, when they were talking about the Falcons, man, I feel like he was slipping in some little just subtle shots. I think he still wasn't too happy about them not hiring him.
Oh,
I think the way he was talking about it was
felt it.
Yeah. I mean, it was there. It was there.
I love him in the commentary, though. I think he's going to go. I hope he doesn't go back to coaching. He's so good. His commentary is just it's thought out. It's what you want from I used to be in the game at the highest level, and now I'm going to tell you guys about it. It's why the Manning cast.
And he knows how to communicate it well too.
I was surprised. Some of those players or former coaches, it's like what's in there. They're so used to talking to their talent, they're not used to talking to just a room of people, which I think what broadcasting really is. Like we're just hanging out with people right now, for instance. Yeah. But he gets it across in such an eloquent fashion that I'm like, I gave you too much crap, Bill. He's
kind of funny too. Like he's funny.
Like on the roast, did you catch the roast?
Yeah. Oh, the roast was great. But I mean,
that was amazing. Yeah,
he pops up. Yeah, either Manningcast, sometimes on McAfee. Guys, just I can't believe it. I love Bill Belichick now. Like you told me that 3 years ago to punch you in the face. Like no,
yes, I would have done that to you, man. But who would have thought?
This is go Bill. Yeah, keep it up. You have nothing left to prove in coaching. Please keep entertaining us.
Mm-hmm. We'll get him on the show for sure, right?
I mean, dude, he seems to be everywhere right now. Maybe we can get him.
I'm gonna slip into his DMs.
Why is Josh Allen so bad? Come on, Larry, you're killing me here. First, Lamar Jackson is Malik Willis, and now Josh Allen is bad. Keon Coleman's on the field. Maybe he did forget, or maybe also Keon Coleman's not that good. That's also very much a possibility. But we're going to talk about Keon Coleman here in a little bit. Buy low on Bryce Young. I would say if you do still have any modicum of hope that he can be something, you can probably get him pretty damn cheap right now. If you want to buy low, that should be very, very attainable for you. I'll encourage you to hang on to your 2027 fourth round picks.
I was going to say, you're not touching a second now. I'm taking anyone in the second round above him at this point, though.
Yeah. Now, talking about somebody I do feel bad for, I feel bad for Bryce.
I do feel bad for him. Look, there's a million people getting injured. Half the quarterbacks look like they suck. I think he'll get a shot, but it's got to be elsewhere. I think. Yeah,
I think he will. He's a number one overall pick. Look, he's not going to be written out of the league in 18 games, short of like a off the field problem. So
yeah, he could be a bridge quarterback, and we'll see if he steps up. I wouldn't mind seeing something happen.
So I think we're back to Perry's 8-team league. Would you trade Tyreek Hill, Kyren Williams for Amon-Ra, Connor, or Hill, Kyren for Justin Jefferson, Nabers? Well, I would trade Hill and Kyren for Jefferson and Nabers for sure. I don't even care what your running back situation is outside of that. and Hill and Kyron for Amon-Ra and Connor. It's kind of a wash to me.
I wouldn't do the Amon-Ra. Well, this is just redraft. So actually, yeah, that would be Tyreek Hill, Kyron for Amon-Ra, Connor. I think you can get more. I would want something back.
Yeah, I mean, with Puka and Cup out now, I think Kyron's going to certainly see a lot of extra work, at least here in the near future. And I'm not all the way out on Tyreek without Tua. I mean, he's still Tyreek Hill. I mean, just get the ball in his hands and crazy things can happen. So, I mean, obviously, I don't regard him as a potential candidate for wide receiver 1 overall anymore. But am I not starting him now because of this? Absolutely not. That's insane. Yeah. So I'd probably just hang on to Tyreek and Kyron in that one. But I would move them for Jefferson and Nabers in a heartbeat. Ross, I'm not worrying, Kendall. If you have Chase and Bengals in any league where you have, I'm buying. Man, you were just saying you were going to sell Chase and Burrow off like in our chat last week. Get out of here. Get out of here.
I mean, they're on the block everywhere, but it's like we do our shows, right? And then people like that watch are in some of my leagues, right? And then they'll throw me out like a single first for Jamar Chase or something like that. I'm like, guys, I will sell at 97 cents on the dollar. Okay, no problem. I'll give you a tad bit of value. But what are we doing here, guys? Like, you got to believe in yourself. If you really are the type of player that's like, I'm going to buy low on this guy, like, be prepared to buy just a little bit low. Don't go for the pure value. Like call your shot, you know? I don't like this, right. I don't like the whole, like, I'll buy this guy, but only at a ridiculous value. Because then you're not calling your shot, right? And if you're playing in a good dynasty league with, like, good players, like, that's never going to happen. You only win that trade if you're actually playing someone that's bad. Otherwise, call your shot. Pay up a little more. It'll feel better when you're right. Trust me.
And honestly, similar thing sometimes with buying high. I mean, sometimes that price really is only going up. So right now, even at a high price, it's still, like, that's where I'd probably put Malik Nabers. Probably a high price, but guess what? I think that bad boy is going up. So if you have any desire to try to trade for a Malik Nabers, now's still the time.
I would overpay for him at this point, for sure.
Yeah.
My chance to overpay for Devin Achane, I think, kind of came and went. I had a period of time where I was getting him for like just a first and a second, but
and I couldn't in the most recent startup that I did, probably, what was it, early August, maybe late July, I'm not sure. But HN was slipping. I think we got around to the end of the 4th is when I started trying to trade up to try and get him. And I was offering, normally I hate trading future picks in a startup. I'm a trade back exclusively type of person. But in this case, I was trying to do a trade up and offer a first along with it. So trade, my 5th, which was like mid or late 5th, and give you the first so I can draft it. And they rejected me, and like each time a person would reject the trade, make their pick, and HN wasn't taken, I just kept trying to make that same trade to the next person. No, I was actually down in the 6th. That's where I was. I didn't have a 5th round pick. I had already traded it away.
Wow.
And he ended up falling to me at like the 602. I got Devin Achane at the 602 in a startup.
That's pretty insane. He was my big reach in best ball, where like he was going at like the 2-3 turn in best ball. Like I decided I want a lot of Saquon. I thought the upside was, I don't care about the downside. I only see where this works, and when it works, it's going to be great. But Saquon was like a 1-2 turn guy. So my how do I win tournaments and be weird this year by like, how do I do a reach thing? As I'm like, all right, I'm just going to reach the entire second round and do a lot of 1-2 turn Saquon, Devin Achane. I did that in a lot of like the big best ball tournaments where you just have to be weird.
Pretty beautiful.
Oh, I'm getting stupid excited. The only thing is like my second thing was like, gotta be elite tight end this year. And it's like, oh shit.
There's still hope for that though. Like all the tight ends have been terrible. So
right, except for Bowers, baby. Oh, we're gonna get to him though. We got a whole. He'll just be the tight end segment. We should probably get some of these rookies though. I think, right?
We should. I'm gonna hit these last 2 comments here before we move on. Larry, I did think Herbert was bad. Wait until my Willis take ages. I mean, I will wait. I'll continue to wait. No problem. I really have no fear about Malik Willis rebounding and turning into something like Herbert, making me look bad. Not worried about that at all. Herbert was actually good in college. So, do we hit the panic button on Levis? Should one move into Drake Maye? I would trade Levis for Drake Maye. Nobody's going to give you Drake Maye for Will Levis in Dynasty, though. But yeah, I'm much like Bo Nix. I was never in on Levis to begin with, so I don't have any of them. The panic button has always been there, so I'm not the right person to ask here. I don't know if you were ever of a positive opinion of Will Levis on your end, Kendall. So if so, though, are you hitting the panic button? No,
I was never super in. I did find a pocket of like, he's just mispriced he was a portfolio play for me, is what I would call it, where I thought his price, I don't think he's going to be a hit, but I have to take a lot of bets and a lot of guys that won't hit, knowing that if I'm getting him at the right price, the right price is still a good play. I'll chase that flush draw a little bit. And
if he does hit, if you got him at a late second rookie pick, I mean, that's
exactly. It was that if I can do the late second for him straight up, I think like even if he sucks, I can get that value back in an emergency situation. So that's why I always liked his price. I never loved the talent, to be honest, but I'm going to give him a little bit more time. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, knowing that, Nuke is a pretty real wide receiver. He's coming back from the injury. He didn't have above a 50% snap share yet. I just want to see what he's like with all of his weapons on the field, with those running backs taking some of the pressure off. I think he might surprise people a little bit with how he can just play a decent game of football. Maybe not great with a fully healthy wide receiver core. I'm going to give him another 2 weeks.
Give him some more time. What I will say is I actually hope I'm wrong on him, just because the dude is a dog, and like I love how he plays.
I want to hang out with him. I like the game awesome in him.
So, So I just on that factor alone, like I hope he finds success. I'm just not one to think that he will. But yeah, we definitely do need to get to some of these rookies because we are burning through time and we haven't even hit the running backs yet. Dang. All right. Well, thankfully,
the running backs are category.
There's no Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall type runner in this class. So just kind of the big five. We're not even going to factor in Jonathan Brooks, since he has started the season on PUP or IR rather. So we still won't see him for a few weeks. But we have Trey Benson of the Arizona Cardinals, Bucky Irving of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Marshawn Lloyd of the Packers, who just hit IR today. So we can probably limit discussion on him. I think that's it's a really bad sign for the rest of his year. Blake Corum, and then Jonathan Brooks here. So high level from me, Trey Benson, I think he's probably mostly irrelevant from a fantasy perspective as long as James Conner is healthy. Irving and Blake Corum, they should be rostered in all leagues. Irving is seeing the field just as much as Rachaad White already. It's not getting that receiving work that Rachaad White has been getting the last couple of years yet, but he's seeing a lot of the field. So make sure you have Irving on your bench. And Blake Corum, well, with the continued decimation of the wide receiving core, I mean, I was already of this opinion even before Kupp got hurt. You need to have Corum on your roster. With the top two receivers down, top tight end down, they're going to have to start giving the ball a lot more to the backs. And while they did ride Kyren pretty exclusively last year, I don't think that's Sean McVay's plan this season to give him another, 90% of the carries. So Corum is going to start to get in there. And I mean, I'm one to still think that I think he's better than Kyren, and I think as he gets more and more touch on the field, that may start to show, and he'll start to get more and more of that share. So I'm excited for him. And then Lloyd, forget about it. Brooks, when he comes back, and especially now with Dalton actually under center, I'm a bit more optimistic for what he's going to be able to do in his return. But he's a guy that was drafted and is already being stashed. So either you already have him or you don't. Nothing's changed in the world of Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much everything. Everyone should be rostered for sure, but I do think you're starting to see Benson is, especially in like your 5 bench leagues where it's like, look, is what it is. The waiver wire is just going to be hotter than normal because of what we have to do with bench and rotating. And there's like more low level trading where it's like flipping a wide receiver for a running back that no one believes in, but you got to do something. These like flex flipping, that type of stuff. I like holding Benson a little bit, just because Connor has had some injury history, and I think Benson steps pretty clearly into a good role in a good offense, right? So that actually makes some sense. Irving, also, I think he's elevated a little bit. I am trying to acquire him super cheap. I'm paying very little, but Rachaad White did get a little bit banged up, groin injury.
Yeah, he did.
I don't really care what injury it is. I think with running backs, my general strategy in redraft is just I want to be a full week to 2 weeks ahead so I can really hit the pockets where they're already on my team. I spent all next to no fab compared to the fab dump of when they get their break. So I want to follow guys that the guy above them is perfectly fine, except they got a little banged up, right? Because the chances their body compensates for something in a wrong way in the next game or the next practice, things can happen. And so that's what I'm looking for. I want Irving because I don't know if Rachaad White injury is going to cause re-injury, and James Conner runs angry, and I think something could happen.
Yes,
there.
he does.
So that's why I kind of like those guys. Yeah, the Corum Lloyd being on IR plus, I just don't think he's going to see the field in the way that we'd like him to. Corum, I just don't see a real ceiling there outside of injury. I like him. I think he's going to get on the field. I just think it's going to be the same situation you're trying to figure out in your running back room of like, who's going to merge? How's this going to go? I just don't think Corum is ever going to be a league winner outside of injury this year. But I do think he's going to have some standalone value. He might be kind of looking like Tyler Algier by the end of the year, where he's just getting enough usage where he's getting some points for you. But the point is, are we going after any of these guys realistically? At least I think the answer for me is no. I mean, I love the exciting take of what could be, but these are all handcuff only for an injury. Even this early in the season, I'm just not seeing something dramatic happen, and I'm not going to overreact.
Correct. Yeah, nobody to look to aggressively acquire. More, I think the play with these guys, if any of your league mates get impatient and drop some of these guys, if somebody drops Corum or Benson, I'm probably going to try to pick them right back up myself, because I probably have somebody expendable that I'd rather hold those handcuffs over. But in terms of like trying to actively make trades or anything like that, nah, past that.
Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning, I guess, that these are low producing backups. Like Irving's getting on the field a little bit, sure, but there are other players that have less upside, but they're more startable. This time of the year, I'm looking for them a little bit more. I'm glad you bring up Braylon Allen. That I would rather own Braylon Allen above most of these guys, because I think the week-to-week points per game is going to be higher, and still has that upside. So I actually like Braylon Allen over all those guys, if I'm being honest. But that's more situation and getting on the field.
And I did do that part of the show sheet before Sunday's games took place. So, yeah. So I didn't have Allen factored in there like I should have. And I like this question from Rafi. Does Dalton make Deontay Johnson a buy low guy? I know Deontay has kind of been polarizing for a lot of fantasy players even before entering Carolina. I'm part of the classic Mike school, where I've actually been very in on Deontay in PPR formats, and I do think Dalton does make him a buy low guy. Somebody who can actually complete the forward pass to him. Yes, I think he'll be very much back to his Pittsburgh role in a sense. I mean, it'll be a lot of, 7-yard slants from Dalton to Deontay going to be deadly. Get 6 of those a game. That's a nice flex player. Boom, there you go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I do think he is a nice buy low guy. Don't underrate the level of consistency that backup quarterbacks, these career backups, and he's not even career backup. This is a starting quarterback that's now a career backup, right? This guy can ball out. Look what Joe Flacco did when he stepped onto the field last year. I mean, you see these all the time where they can ball out a little bit. I'm not saying that Carolina is going to ball out all of a sudden, but I do think this is a massive upgrade in terms of just moving the chains. And I do think Deontay is an awesome buy low. I'd even go so far as to say like Xavier Leggett is looking like a pretty solid buy low for me right now. I liked what I saw from him on the field. I liked what I saw with his downfield stuff.
He'll be damn near free too.
Exactly. He's a guy I think you can get for free. You got to trade for Deontay, but I think the owner's probably looking for any semblance of something. It just feels good to get it off your roster. I would go after him, and I wouldn't lie. I am taking a few shares of Leggett off the waiver wire just to see. There's a chance he could literally be the 1A, 1B in that offense with their record. They might suck so bad their rookie's going to get a lot of playing time. I like them both.
Yeah, very on the table. But back to, well, he is a rookie wide receiver, actually. Although I don't even know if I had him on the list there at the end. I think I left him off. Yeah, I stopped at Mitchell on our show sheet. So glad we're able to sneak in that Leggett take with the Dalton news. But let's go with one of the most highly touted wide receiver prospects in recent years. A man who started his career with a 1 catch for 4-yard performance, and that is Marvin Harrison Jr., NFL progeny.
Baby. Had that classic get right game helping me with the get right shout outs over here. Yeah, that was targeted early and often. I don't know about you, but for me, it was less of a box score thing, and it was more about I needed to watch that game. I needed to watch him play.
That first touchdown catch got me borderline aroused. I was very excited.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, that is some actual situational awareness. We got a toe tapper. Like, is he slow? Can he
and it was a little bit of a fingertip grab on that ball too on that one. So
like,
I mean, it was everything came together on that one catch.
That was. Yeah, everything you wanted to see from him. Nuanced route running, knowing where he's at on the field, timing with the quarterback was what's clearly different for me. That's back on where it needs to. And the fact that this was all literally in the first half gives you like some players just play a good game. 9 targets, 7 catches, 107 yards. Looks awesome, right? When you can do that level of production in a half of football, you're playing a very different game. And for me, he went from like, guys, is he going to do the JSN BS, dance where it's taking forever, which thankfully JSN got there too. But no, this was nope. Remember when he got freaked out about Jamar Chase with the preseason drops?
Yeah.
This was the preseason drops for Marvin Harrison. And now we're all like, glad we got that out of our system, guys. Now we can bitch and moan about all the injuries and not about this. We have something to look up to. All right, we got Nabers, we got Harrison. All is well in the fantasy world. Dynasty football makes sense again. It's a good place. I don't think there's any other take than he's exactly what we thought we'd be. He is not Tyreek Hill. He plays a different type of football, but sometimes you have to see it with that type of football to see it. And not every receiver can do the fingertips catches with the toe taps, and not every quarterback is comfortable throwing NFL open. I think that's our worry with traditional X's. Kyler comes from a tree of like, I can't unforget watching him, throw the Hail Mary and random stuff like that, but he likes to break it down. And he likes to get crazy when he breaks the play down in a similar way to Russell Wilson. So very encouraged by the usage. And I think he's Jamar Chase wheels up for the rest of the year.
Could not agree more. I mean, literally my whole note about this was wheels up, baby. That's, like you said, all is right with the world. I think he's back on his path to hopefully being a low-end redraft wide receiver 1. And for me, he's a top 5 dynasty wide receiver already. And that made me feel a lot better about having that opinion. So I don't really have much to say other than good, seemingly as advertised.
Mm-hmm. I guess the only nuanced take I can throw is that I still thought his draft price and redraft was nuts. Didn't make any lick of sense to me.
Correct.
From a historical comp standpoint.
At the turn in general, right? I mean, you were probably seeing him no later than 13, 14 most drafts.
I mean, for me, it was like, guys, we're taking him over running backs that I don't care how 0 RB super wide receiver heavy you really personally want to take it. I just couldn't take that entire tier of wide receivers over some of the running backs. And for me, the rookie made no sense. I think watching this game, it's like, I'm glad a few people are going to be right, because those are the Looney Tune numbers you need to be a borderline first round pick. And actually, I'm glad some people's calls are going to be right. He's not just going to be good enough to be drafted there. He might actually be a value where he was drafted, which is scary to say.
It's funny too, because I generally shared that opinion in redraft. However, I made Marv a bit of a portfolio pick for myself in a couple of best ball drafts, just because, at a certain point late in the best ball drafting season, it's like, I just need to mix it up a little and not just have all these teams be the same. So I had a couple teams where I decided to take the plunge on Marv there, and one I was able to get the stack with Kyler, and oh baby, that team's looking good all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, this is one of those like, oh, I see why stacking wins titles, because that was just a free square. Yeah. Yeah, that's fun. So we get to, I think, a guy that me and you were higher on in the process. We were, I think both of us were pretty huge on Nabers as like, no, they're same tier as Harrison. Were you that high on him?
Yes. Now, to me, I still had clear separation between the two, but Nabers was just levels and levels and levels closer to Harrison than, say, Odunze was to Nabers. So, yeah, basically, they were the 1A, 1B in a sense, and then Rome was 3.
I think my question was, Harrison's good enough, but Kyler better be what we think he is, because if Kyler's dust, he's in trouble. Where I'm like, Nabers was for me like more QB proof. I was certain that like, oh, I don't care where he goes, he's going to be fine. And then he gets the death sentence. I'm like, you know what? Actually, I think this is a redraft godsend for me, because I'm going to get him so much later than he's supposed to go. Yeah. He's one of my highest owned wide receivers in redraft. I was not leaving
Yahoo. He was really slipping down into like 4th and 5th round in some of the drafts I was in. It was insane.
Yeah, that made no sense for me. I'm not getting out of the late 3rd without taking him for sure. He was definitely up there. I wanted like, Cup I would take as early as the 2nd. Nabers was my like reach at 3.
I like that. And that looks like it will work out, because like you said, is even going into the NFL draft, you're already kind of looking at Nabers as possibly QB proof, and that was the question that I thought was possibly answered after this past week. Now, just to be fair, always got to, throw devil's advocate, information out there. Daniel Jones, the one team, there's one single team that Daniel Jones just has ownage of, and it is the Washington Commanders. Why? Riddle me that. I honestly couldn't tell you. But even with that factored in, I mean, again, this is one of the, like, the eye test. Just if you watched the game, if you watched the plays Nabers was making, just watched him make these catches, run these routes, it was just a thing of absolute beauty. I mean, and yeah, and I'll even be fair to TJ. He had a couple, like it's not like Nabers was having to make a crazy contested catch on every single thing. He did it all himself on Sunday. But he just showed every like plus trait he has in the process of even the more routine plays. So really, Jones was irrelevant. You saw what you needed to see, just like you saw it with Marv. I mean,
yeah, that was, and honestly, we didn't see all the yak stuff that we're expecting that's still coming. I think there's still this uncapped, like, guys, if you thought 100 was good, he can put up some 200-yard games. He hasn't done almost anything big after the catch.
Yeah.
He hasn't been thrown open. He's just cutting so much separation. By the time the ball gets to him, he's in good shape. But if they can start play calling better around him, if the team can actually prep for a little more success, I think his ceiling is even further through the roof. I'm loving everything about Nabers. Nabers is actually, for me, a serious buy. I will overpay and buy and redraft however I have to get him on my team. Cup was my league winner. He's gone. Nabers was like my league winner light that I was calling in a lot of places at wide receiver. I don't have any comps I can give you, but if it's close, I am going with Nabers however I can get a deal done. I really do think he's going to be a top 12 wide receiver.
Again, every league is its own, little micro ecosystem, but I think for most of you guys out there, Nabers is probably attainable, because obviously just a pop game here, but listen to Kendall. Be willing to overpay for Nabers. I very much agree with this. And by overpay, honestly, I don't think that's not meeting anything crazy in the case of Nabers, because he still is going to have that giant stink on him a bit. I do think, unless you're playing in a league with somebody like Kendall or myself, if you're in a league with a lot of people that play Dynasty as well, they're probably going to hold a bit tighter. But for any of your normal redraft leagues, particularly your home leagues, you're going to be able to get him at what actually what your league mate might think is overpaying. They're getting a great deal. You're probably paying just fair value. So, I mean, I can't come up with a hypothetical
Olave is the
trade,
name
but
that comes to mind.
dude,
Everybody,
easy,
the name
easy.
recognition is there, but I am
Yeah.
smashing. If I'm offered Nabers for my Olave, I'm taking Nabers for sure. Drake London's where it starts getting close for me, but I'm definitely like selling like the name recognition of Olave to go grab Nabers. Deals like that, I would definitely get done.
See, this is exactly what we're talking about, Anthony. And he is a very good player and a dynasty player here, but yeah, Love Nabers can't buy him because of Jones, just can't do it. And that's the kind of mindset that's going to enable you to be able to get Nabers at a good price. Because
the only
even
thing,
those that
right?
love him
are
still, going to have this in the back. They just can't get past that. And that's fair. I mean, Daniel Jones being a concern is totally valid. Like, I'm not even... Like, I think that's a very fair perspective from Rasta here. So not even judging that. It's just, I think Kendall and I are at a point where it's probably confirmation bias to a degree, already having been so high on him and then seeing him do this early with this quarterback. It kind of just validates what we were already thinking. And I did make note of this, Anthony. Yes, it was just Washington, and Daniel Jones is very good against Washington for whatever reason.
To be fair, like bad quarterbacks.
Still,
look how we play fantasy. We start trash defenses against trash offenses because nothing can overcome terrible quarterback play. You can make defenses look amazing. They're still NFL athletes. Like the defense isn't great, but they're still a collection of NFL athletes, right? Where some quarterbacks make the worst defense in the NFL look absolutely elite, right? So I think in that instance, like DJ is pretty awful, right?
Yeah.
But it could be worse. He's still completing a decent percentage, like compared to like Bryce Young absolutely tanks an entirety of a slate of offense. I don't think DJ is that bad. He's bad, but he is not that bad. And I've still seen him be able to produce some fantasy relevance. But I think the stink of DJ is so bad. Like you said, it's the one reason someone has to run away from something. And if they're running away from DJ, that is something that I would buy on the premise that I'm comfortable that Nabers will outproduce that garbage. Even if it means we got to get him the ball in the backfield, do some Jayden Reed type of scheme stuff, we'll figure it out.
Correct. And I don't think Dable will be against that. I think Dable will make sure he's getting the ball in Nabers' hands.
Or there's Tannehill, you know.
That'd be kind of fun, actually. And speaking of Yak, when is Rodgers going to start to unleash lots of underneath looks to Corley? He is not, would be my answer to that. At least not lots of them. And he certainly not anytime soon. So I would say don't hold your breath, Rafi. That's
not in 24, man.
Nah. But I understand why you would want that.
That other rookie, that Xavier Gibson guy, is unfortunately, I think, going to steal any chance of Corley being a full breakout in year one.
Probably.
And all those catches that would go to him underneath are going to Braylon Allen now.
And also, Rodgers, he likes to lean on his trusted big guys in general. So, I mean, it's still going to be a lot of Wilson. And honestly, probably more Lazard than people are going to want to see just because Rodgers likes, his guys, right? So I would not have any expectations for Corley this season. And I hate to throw this out in a public sense, but with this next group of receivers, we probably kind of got to push it because I am nearing my out time. So
I love it. Lightning round.
A little more rapid fire here. And we're going to return to your Bears and Rome Odunze. Where are we at with him? Although banged up already too, so it's kind of a bummer.
Okay, Rome is easy. The NFL season hasn't started for Rome yet. Take nothing into it. And if you're trying to sell early, sell them to me because I'll buy. We haven't seen anything on the field that makes me think Rome isn't still an elite talent. Caleb's going to take a little bit of time. The offense is going to take a little bit of time. But Rome is also absolutely quarterback proof. It just, he was also the rookie. I mean, it was encouraging. I think he got 5 targets this last game. Didn't come together. Yeah. But I think much bigger days ahead for Rome. But in this particular case, our defense is pretty elite in Chicago. And so it's going to forgive a lot of the mistakes of the quarterback. Honestly, I have zero take. Rome is still an elite talent. If he gets held down a few more weeks by Caleb, he does. I'm not playing him. I'm not starting him, but I would not remotely consider dropping him, because the upside in him being the go-to red zone threat over like some teams will all of a sudden tight ends will get involved. Rome is the go-to red zone threat for this team out of pure talent standpoint. So if the offense starts to click a little bit, Rome could start developing into like a Mike Williams-esque sort of, red zone, doesn't have the catches, but he gets there. It's just too early. Give it 2 more weeks. If you're an owner, close your eyes and hold on for a little bit. If you're a buyer, start the conversation. The owner's not selling yet, but give them 2 more weeks. And depending on how drunk they are, I mean, they might do it.
I'm pretty much in agreement. I think he falls in the bucket to where we haven't really learned anything yet. I don't think he can take anything one way or the other based on what we've seen, but I would not drop him. I do think the upside, even in redraft still this year, is there for him, because even though he was banged up, he was still able to find his way into the field. Keenan Allen, on the other hand, was not, and is older, heavier, and is somebody I think more likely to have his injuries be a factor throughout the season than Rome is. So anytime that Keenan misses is just going to be a big plus for Odunze. So
contested catch guy is not the worst friend for a quarterback struggling with inaccuracy as well.
Very much so. Now we move on to who I hope is some distant cousin of mine. We share a last name, and that is Lad McConkey. Fun fact, I have a dog named Aladdin, and we often just shorten it to Lad. So the Chargers drafted my dog, and it's awesome, and I love Lad McConkey for that reason. And I live in Orange County, current home of Chargers headquarters, until they move their headquarters officially into LA County. But for now, they're still in Orange County. So there's a lot of congruency here, and I probably allowed that to affect my thinking because I did draft a lot of Lad in rookie drafts. But what can I say, man? There's not a lot of McConkeys making it to the NFL, so I'm trying to represent. That said, awesome week 1 from Lad. Loved it. Bit lesser week 2, but I don't think I really was incredibly hopeful for him in the Panthers matchup. I didn't think he was going to be somebody that was going to be leaned on, especially in that particular game. So that's not really a worry for me. What is a little bit more of a worry for me is that Herbert did exit the game for a bit. He was a little bit banged up. So as long as Herbert's on the field, though, I'm not throwing him out there every week. It'll be kind of matchup dependent for me with McConkey this season. But I wouldn't drop him. He should be on all rosters, and he already has shown himself to be a factor on the field. So I think there's reason for cautious optimism the rest of the season. Again, pending Herbert's health.
Yep, that's a big worry. My quick take on him is, look, I like him, but in redraft, his role for me, right now he's a low-end flex for me. I'm finding other options for the most part, and I will look for them. Here's what I'm looking for going forward before I actually see the real production. I like the snap shares high, but I feel like for him to really hit a high level of relevance, I need to see what the team does and what looks like in a more negative game script. The Chargers defense looks a lot more real. Now they haven't played great competition yet, so how much can you take away from them? Well, last year they played some bad teams and the defense looked awful. This year they're playing some mediocre to bad teams and their defense is looking good. It's the NFL. Nothing's a cakewalk. You have to win the matchups you're supposed to win, and they won that handily. This is a negative for Lad, though, for me. If they face less negative game scripts, everything's close. I don't see a real reason for them to need to run through the air. And I thought the way that he could be sort of wide receiver 2 this year was going to be pure volume out of the slot, where he can just have a lot of 7-8 catch games, no touchdowns, but a PPR menace. I don't see enough game scripts going that way. And obviously the slight emergence of QJ with having multiple weapons. If the passing volume never gets past a certain threshold, I don't see him commanding a 25% target share. I don't think that even makes sense from a scheme standpoint, from his player type. So with the culmination of all those, I think it sort of permanently lowered his ceiling for me this year based on what I've seen. J.K. Dobbins looking like he can single-handedly win games does not help McConkey. And Quentin actually catching a ball, I think, is a big damper because I thought it was going to be like a 1A, 1B. I need the overall production to be better than expectations. Now, if he's losing some red zone stuff too, look, I think the future is bright for him, but more from a dynasty perspective. From a redraft perspective, he's a low-end flex for me. I'm not looking at him as someone I can count on for points every year in a league-winning way. And I think even to the end of the year, I think his better games aren't going to be good enough that you feel fantastic about. And they're going to have to be good matchups.
That part, I agree with much of what you said in the sense of, I think, game script wise, for most of the season probably is not going to be in his favor. So as opposed to being a PPR monster, like you said, 7-8 catches, no touchdowns, it's going to be kind of the opposite. He's going to be a bit touchdown dependent on whether he was start worthy in his given week. Now, I know QJ just had a wonderful week here. I am still definitely not there on him despite this nice performance here. Definitely need to see more out of him, and I still think McConkey is the superior player there. Dobbins,
agreed.
Look, he's looked good. I don't even like putting this out into the ether because I'd never like to be that guy, but
I know what you're thinking.
Just his durability is going to be a concern for me, especially if they ride him as hard as they have these first couple of weeks. I mean,
yeah.
Who was it? I pop into it was Jeff Manns when I was on lunch today. You kind of put it so you said there's only so many squirts in the bottle, right? Like, and I do think that's probably true in the case of Dobbins. He probably has a certain threshold of carries before he's going to start to break down, and I just hope they don't get there too fast.
They look like they could be a playoff team if he sticks around.
I think Gus Edwards is a very capable back in his own right, so I don't think if they have to go from Dobbins to Edwards, it's going to be that much of a boon for McConkey. But I think, if you're going to have to, he's not going to be a league winner, like you said, and it will be matchup dependent. So you just got to pick those spots. When he has a more favorable chance of scoring are the weeks that I'm going to be looking to try to plug it in. But he's not going to be an every week starter for sure. And for me, similar to you, I'm probably more of a mid-range flex play than low end, but that's, splitting hairs, honestly, when you're just talking about the flex range. So
as soon as I see a negative game script where they run multiple faster plays, where he's a tempo slant type of option, then he gets elevated significantly in my rankings because I'm banking on those types of plays to pockets of plays to happen, which can really elevate the end of your day. Being able to, like, in one drive catch 3 for 30 is a big deal. And being able to have that in more consistent pockets of a game, I think, is a big deal. I just haven't seen them, even from you just watch the drop back and you watch the routes happen. I haven't seen him be like the answer as a quick read option yet. But if the game goes negative and that's the way it goes, I'm instantly on him. I guess my tentative take is we're going to talk about a lot of rookies we love that have game-winning ceiling. For me, the arrow is slightly down in terms of,
I guess it's
game-winning, league-winning ceiling, not on the player itself. It's just, I think it's a usage problem, not a talent problem. Now, QJ could go drop 2 touchdowns next week, and the usage could start really flipping if he's just fool's gold. And so I'm kind of holding out for that range of outcomes for Lad is what I'm hoping for, because I personally own him a lot, and I'm rooting for it, So
thanks, crossed. All right, so we're gonna hit true rapid fire with these final 4 here. So we'll go with one of the darlings early on here, Xavier Worthy of the Kansas City Chiefs. Briefly, what is your summarization on Worthy?
Super boom bust, but that's the take everyone's going to give you. As soon as he develops any bit of consistency, I'm happy in my flex because when he goes off, I win. When he doesn't, I still probably have a chance. Obviously, the passing volume for the Chiefs has been down, and defenses, Brachy Rice just might be that good. My thing with Worthy is right now, he's a low-end flex for me just because I think the floor really isn't there at all. He can have some goose games because that team can win in so many other ways. I just want to see a little bit more. With injuries and rosters being pretty bad for everybody, though, if it's between him and a floor level play, like the running back that you don't want to start, sure, I'm going to go Worthy just because if it's going to be 20 points or 0 points, I want to go with that upside. But the guy that I think, I'm going to get 5 or 10 from, I'll get production. Worthy's more interesting. He's going to, do some more of that. So I still think expectations need to come down a little bit on him. Kelsey's going to get involved before Worthy does, is probably my bet. So as much as I want to be through the roof on him from a dynasty perspective, I think I got to tame it down a little bit for redraft compared to where the market's at.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like most boom busting from a redraft perspective, obviously should be on every team. And as far as when to play him, where I'm coming from is we're going back to matchup dependence, but not Chiefs matchup dependence, your fantasy teams match up. So when you're going up, it depends on who you're going against. If you have a tough opponent or projected to be tough, how much stock you want to put in those projections. If it's going to be close and you're going to need somebody to potentially hit a home run, I'm firing up Worthy those weeks. If you need somebody reliable to just get you that 8 to 10, just to make sure some of your other studs have down weeks, but you don't just want to make sure you don't lose to the crap opponent, your taco of the league, then maybe I'm going just with a more boring, safer play. So I think that's how I'm going to treat Worthy this year.
I like that take. I think that's the game theory optimal. Like, it's hard to know this early, but look, a couple weeks in, you're going to know if it's the nightmare matchup or not. And that's when you throw out your nightmare beater,
Bingo. All right, Brian Thomas Jr. is our next one. And I will admit, this is a guy that I was pretty low on. I have pretty much zero. Actually, I think literally zero of him in Dynasty or Redraft. And that's already kind of looking like an L. I know things aren't going swimmingly for the Jaguars as a whole early on, but I'll say Thomas looks good, especially that deep catch he made here in he had a great week 1, but that deep ball he came down with in week 2 was just incredible tracking by Thomas. Way to make that catch. And I still don't really know how I really value him in redraft the rest of the way, except he should be rostered. I just don't know how exactly I'm going to deploy him yet because I think there's a ton of questions surrounding Jacksonville, but the dude's a good player is really instead of me thinking he wasn't, quickly reversing course on that and saying, no, Brian Thomas, good.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with this one, which is in the draft process. Look, I thought there was a chance he could just be like a worse version of DK Metcalf, where he's all athleticism, but it doesn't translate. I didn't scout him the way I probably should have, but I just saw a lot of 9 routes and a talented player. I didn't realize he had the nuance that he does, and like you said, that deep ball tracking was pretty elite. Just watching a few of those catches, like for me, was like, oh, he's a dog, though, right? Like Christian Kirk, you're actual done. Like, there's just no ball that belongs in his hands that doesn't belong in your hands. Like, he instantly displaced him in one play in my head, and which also displaced the rest of the wide receivers. And then, oh my God, Evan Ingram goes down with an injury, and it's the arrow could not go any more up for me. For me, BTJ is simple. He's the team. Everybody in the locker room knows he's the wide receiver 1 for the team because you can't unsee what he just did. He's now going to be more of a first read guy. The coaching staff is going to be forced into a position to make that make sense. Volume might be an issue, but he's going to be on the field for every play. He has the ability to do the deep stuff and catch the touchdowns, be the red zone threat for a team that looks like they're going to be in some negative scripts reasonably often enough. For me, he's a locked and loaded wide receiver 3. I see him as a high upside flex play. Because I do think he has a safe floor, but if this team ever gets into any version of a shootout, and I assume some of the better offensive days are coming, I think he stands to benefit. And if 4 for 4 with a touchdown is kind of, I think, more of the bottom end of what he could be, I think the future is brighter for him. He has a more consistent path to being relevant every single week in fantasy than a lot of the other guys we've talked about. He's in my lineup for sure at this point.
Fair. I don't know if I'm there yet on a weekly basis, but shoot, you have made a good argument. All right, Keon Coleman out in Buffalo.
Keon.
So what are we thinking on him? I know you're probably a little more favorable towards him than I am.
I am, but mostly in Dynasty. I've been preaching for a little while that I like Coleman. But I thought like James Cook was a league winner for me because I thought that Buffalo was going to fundamentally change the way they play football. What was happening wasn't working. When they changed it around, it seemed to be a little bit better. I thought they wanted to be a heavy run team. I think they wanted a tight end as a major situational threat. They're still working him in. They'll figure it out, but they wanted to be they wanted the run to open up the pass, not vice versa. And they wanted an actual running game that took a little bit of pressure off of Allen. I didn't know it would be to this extent, but this is sort of the game script that I called that they'd be in more often than not. I thought Coleman would be, it's going to take a little while. I think all the pass catchers were going to struggle a little bit. I was lower on Shakir. So I thought Coleman was going to be he is the guy that I wasn't going to draft because I think he'd be free on waivers by week 3 or 4. And then I could take him for the late season run where the Bills are going to have to play a little bit differently and into some negative game scripts. So I do like him for redraft. I haven't been starting him. Well, I did in a few places, to be honest, but I knew it was a mistake, and I had the arrogance to be like, you know what? I'll just be right this week. And then I wasn't.
Captained him on my showdown lineup on Thursday.
Oh, yeah, look, the passing volume's not going to be there. An ideal game for the Bills is they don't pass for over 200 yards. The mouths aren't that bad. Curtis Samuel didn't do much, but he'll have better days. Shakir looks pretty good. We all think Kincaid's going to be good at some point. And if Kincaid gets better, where is the passing volume left for Coleman? It's just not quite there. I think it's going to be to week 10 and you're going to be like, I just don't think I can trust him or start him in that offense. I need to see 2 consecutive weeks of him being reasonably involved, and I would need to see that the passing game is significantly different. Hell, I need to see their defense be worse than it is
that too.
for them to need to throw the ball. So a lot of arrows pointing down. Buy him cheap in Dynasty, but he's nearly off my team in redraft right now. There's just better options that, as a Dynasty player, it's hard to cut a guy like Coleman because of Dynasty value.
Holding.
But there are some values on the waiver wire right now that people aren't figuring out, and he's nearly a candidate for me to fluff. Just switch out.
Yeah, I have him on a couple redraft teams. I'm pretty close to that level myself. Look, I was not particularly high on him coming out either, much like BTJ for either Dynasty or redraft, and feeling a bit better about this one than Brian Thomas, of course, so far. But honestly, I don't think these first 2 games are a proper barometer. I think we're kind of the same with Rome, really. At this point, I don't think we've seen enough to glean anything real just yet, although you do make a fair point that obviously one of their aims, like, is to run the ball to open up the pass, but they're having so much success running the ball and getting ahead in these games. I mean, they're not really needing to pass, and that's probably going to be the case in a lot of games for Buffalo this year, especially if the defense does hold up. As you mentioned, the defense is better than expected with the absence of Matt Milano. So, yeah, it's hard to see a path for consistent volume and production for him this year, and
we needed him over Shakir. Just Shakir being the guy over him right now is a big deal because Dalton Kincaid will eventually do something.
He will,
right?
And honestly,
probably.
Shakir's looked good too. Like, again,
really
passing the eye test. So
yeah,
I mean, there's been a couple times I was like, "Holy shit, that was Khalil Shakir."
Yeah,
I mean,
like he looked
play
good, man. I think that for me, that's where Coleman's like, look, it's not your fault, buddy. This team will be great because there's a lot of weapons that I think are underrated. If Shakir ends up being one of them, along with Coleman, you don't got to be the alpha, but you can be good at some point. We're like, he's different. The next guy we're going to talk about, I'm much higher on this season for their path to it, where I'm not seeing the easy path for Coleman right now.
No.
But kudos to Shakir. We're talking about rookies, so I can't throw it out, but dude, keep balling out, man. I was off of Shakir. I was like, guys, we're getting hyped up about a guy that will be like, I got major MVS vibes from it, that type of a thing. And I'm like, I'm happy to be wrong. I think it's better for the NFL if the Bills aren't terrible. So yeah, we'll see.
Agreed. Very much agreed. All right, we'll hit our last rookie receiver, at least that's on our list. A.D. Mitchell out there in Indianapolis. And look, my concern with him was Anthony Richardson, and that is kind of what's played out a little bit. But I think if Richardson, and this is a big, big if, but if he can just dial in, because look, he's got a cannon, and we know he can place a nice deep ball. We've already seen it multiple times this season. But if he can just place it just a little bit better for Mitchell, just a little. I mean, he's just missed a couple long bombs to Mitchell already. Oh man, I think there's still a home run potential on a weekly basis. I mean, similar to Worthy, just with obviously a lesser QB. Richardson's no Mahomes, but if Richardson can just find find that spot with Mitchell on these deep balls, man. I think he could just have some absolutely massive individual weeks. So I would treat him much like Worthy, to where if you have him play him when you potentially need a home run, and that's probably where I'd leave it. But yeah, just that temptation is still there. Kind of everything surrounding Richardson. Like, you see the flaws, but like you also see the upside. And it's so goddamn tempting. Like,
like his average depth
so
of target
bad.
is going to be insane, right? It's different because Mahomes can make a lot of stuff work. I don't think A-Rich can do that yet. I think it makes sense for A-Rich to chuck a ball 50-plus yards on every throw. I do. Because
that's probably
I think
his best chance of success currently.
Exactly.
Right?
From like a game theory perspective, it's like, well, are we going to make this young quarterback that lost all of last season be good at everything? Like, no, it's the NFL. It's not going to work that way. But he can do things that literally nobody in this league can do. Let's just have him lean on that with the talent around him to make that work. Yeah. I feel like Mitchell, like my simple take on Mitchell is a couple of companies. I think PFF is one of them. I usually look up, who had the top separator scores, especially at rookies. Like, hey, did they run routes really well? They were just off camera and I wasn't looking at it. And yeah, he was like top 3 in the NFL. His separation score was beyond elite. It was Garrett Wilson elite. It was stupid. So he's going to be able to get open. He's open at a statistically just crazy fashion. And I think it's just the situation of he's the third read at best and still has to play his into over Alec Pierce. Right. And Pierce just being on the field in the NFL a little bit longer and not being terrible in and of his own right. Right. Like, Pierce has a niche skill set. A.D. Mitchell's a better all around football player.
Right.
But if it's just straight up a 9 route contest, like, Pierce can say, this is the thing I do. It's what they have me do in practice. Like, of course I'm going to be good at it occasionally the time it happens. Right. Like, so give Mitchell some time. He's going to be open more often than not. He's going to function in a major role, because that offense could open up really quickly. They could say, hey, guys, Richardson is just terrifying on short stuff. Like, we get pick 6-5 on short stuff, but we know he can throw the ball farther than any defender is prepared to go. We should just run a bunch of deep stuff. Like, I could see their offense being completely boom bust. It's either Jonathan Taylor rushing for 6 yards a carry damn near, or a 50-yard bomb. Pick how you're going to lose this game.
Well, I think Steichen's innovative enough that he can come up with some creative play calls to not make such a strategy become as predictable, at least in terms of formations and concepts that are being run in order to achieve that. So,
yeah. So we're both high on Mitchell, and better days this year, though. We've been talking a lot about dynasty players, but Mitchell will have, like, I'm loving him this year, especially in the keeper leagues where
we're already seeing
for a while.
Spots.
Yeah, very, very soon he's going to be playing. If he could easily be, Downs does not have to be great when he comes back. I love Josh Downs. I don't think he's the same player that Mitchell is, so we'll have to see. Loving Mitchell.
Absolutely, and yeah, and to dynasty too, probably can get him at a reasonable price as well. And look, I am actually trying to add in spots where I can. So now we're going to close out the show with the final position, the final really player that we're probably going to talk about here. I know we got a couple more on the show sheet, but I've got to wrap it with this one. Tight end, rookie tight ends, and there's really one real question. Does anybody matter besides Brock Bowers?
No, they don't. In redraft, absolutely. If we're talking about rookies at tight end in redraft, no, Ben Sinnott's not going to be a thing. With Zach Ertz still doing his thing over there. The Panthers, let's not even get to the tight end. They got enough problems blocking. They're not going to catch a single pass. And I know you put it in the show sheet, but I'm going to throw it. Bowers is my dynasty tight end one right now, basically unquestionably.
Yeah, no, I'm there. I'm there.
My
with
God.
You, 100%.
That usage that early with another alpha target hog, like, it shouldn't happen. The landing spot should have made it impossible.
This is what we were all hoping and expecting from Kyle Pitts the year he came out.
Yeah, this is actual.
This is what we were
like.
This is what we wanted.
I'll say this is a way better start than Laporta could have dreamed of last year. Laporta got all those stats because of broken plays where he scored some touchdowns. Bowers is doing it in the most sustainable fashion I've ever seen, which is, getting 9 targets, right? Being the go-to to go get a first down, to go win a game, to go beat a team that people were saying probably going to make it to the Super Bowl.
It look pretty easy too. I mean, you just watch him. I mean, it's like light work for Brock.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I mean, I think Ross just throwing it out. It's legitimately historic stuff. Like he could be in year 1 what the greatest became in year 2, 3. It's insane. I love this. This take is particularly happy for me because I, like you, was also off of BTJ. And I had a lot of like mid first round picks. So for me, the BTJ, Worthy, Bowers, what the hell do? I have 1 or 2 of these to pick. I went with the no-brainer, and I'm just taking Bowers, and then I'll figure out what I want to do at wide receiver. But I took him everywhere, just remembering, guys, as a freshman, he looked like he could be the best tight end in the NFL as a freshman in the SEC. And then the landing spot was weird. But yeah, he's my dynasty tight end 1. He might be my redraft tight end 1 straight up too. And I don't think it's particularly close right now.
What's funny too is like he's a crazy athlete, but like, and he doesn't necessarily look like a slow lumbering tight end, but he also doesn't look like a crazy plus athlete either when he's playing, except in the results. But like, he doesn't look like he's running crazy speed, but it's deceptive, man. He's just so big, fast, strong. His routes are perfect. His hands are glue. I mean, the guy is the total package.
Yeah, he's
and
like
honestly,
Amon-Ra.
as a dude, just seems incredibly mature
tight
too.
End, this is what he would be. You wouldn't know what the hell you're getting, but just a lot of 10 and 15-yard completions.
Yep, and sure things.
The only other tight end I'll mention is a rookie is Eric All. Real quick, 4 catches. Bengals rookie. The Bengals organization is in tatters, but if you are looking for some random little bright spots, Eric All was not someone who was even supposed to be on the redraft radar. I'm going to keep an eye if Burrow runs out of targets, if they don't pay anybody any money. He could be an interesting one to watch a little bit.
Certainly. Because, you're not going to expect Mike Gesicki to be great for a full season. At least I'm certainly not.
I mean, he caught a lot of balls, but like a Gesicki injury, I think could do something there.
Right. So we are going to close the show. Before we do so, I'm going to give you the floor for a moment, Kendall. Just tell us where we can find you, where we can find your show, and then we will get the hell out of here. So
check me out over right now, just now on YouTube. I'm still super new to the content creation space, so I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm doing it all pretty poorly, but you guys seem to be hanging in there with me and with the great folks we have over here at the Get Right Fantasy Network. So I urge you all, check out all the shows, find the personalities and the takes that you like. It's just a really fun group of guys. The nice thing for me is I started off kind of as I was a fan and then a part of the group really quickly, but you can actually message all these guys on Sleeper, your trade this or that, and they'll actually get back to you in a really cool way. So probably won't happen forever, since I hope we blow up big and do some fun stuff at some point. But check out everyone's shows. I've been a little MIA with my content, but should be coming back a little bit stronger and doing a lot more shows with these guys. We really appreciate the support. If you watch us occasionally, please do like and subscribe. It means a lot to us as we're trying to grow a little bit and pay a couple bills for the wives and for the kids. And so I can't thank you enough. And definitely keep watching Tycoon Show over here. Had a blast with them, and I hope to do it a bunch more.
It was a blast to have you, honestly, man. Just thrilled to have you join, finally, get us together on the show. And I want to echo everything you said regarding Get Right. Both of us started out as just kind of friends and followers of the guys, tuned into the shows, participating in mocks, and through our own content and just relationships with the guys. We're welcomed onto the team, help add to their network, them help add to our visibility a bit, and it's just been wonderful to partner with these guys. And honestly, it's just fun to work with them on such a close and just about daily basis, because it's just an awesome team. Can't speak highly enough about them, the support and everything that they've shown towards us. So thank you to Anthony, to Frank, to Mike, to Dustin. And also we're just going to shout out Phil over at the Extra Point, also one of the newer additions, along with myself and Kendall. So a lot of good stuff to be found over at the Get Right Fantasy Network. And while we are hoping to grow, as we continue the meteoric rise that we are on, hey, maybe we won't always be able to answer immediately through the Sleeper channel, but there will always be ways that we will be able to aid you in the management and of your teams and strategy as you draft and whatever else you need. We'll find a way to be accessible. I mean, there's always, even Matthew Berry still answers emails sometimes, right? So there's ways. We'll
I gotta try that one,
support.
man.
Don't you
I
worry.
have not got an email back from him yet. I'm gonna quote you on that one though. We're gonna have to see that one.
I haven't either, although maybe I've only sent in one or two in the distant past. But I mean,
Oh,
at least he claims to still sometimes. So I'm just gonna take him at his word. I'm not gonna call Matthew Berry a liar out here. I'm sure he doesn't answer the vast majority, but at least the intriguing questions maybe he gets back on.
Well, we'll see. I got a couple coming to the show pretty soon. I don't know if anybody in chat's a Notre Dame fan, but I live pretty close to them. And my goal this season, in addition to what we're doing with Get Right, is I really want to build a pretty good relationship with my Irish boys out here. I would love to get a couple of the Notre Dame guys on a couple of the shows, maybe some reoccurring stuff. Yeah. So keep a lookout for that. If anyone knows anybody from Notre Dame, or is just a big fan of some of them. I'm usually working. I don't see the games as much, but yes, it's again, I'm a bandwagon Notre Dame fan. Okay, I never was big into them, but it's the economy over here literally stops when Notre Dame loses. It's off. I guess prices go up. Crazy stuff happens out here when Notre Dame loses. It's not a good time, but
well, for the economics of the community, we'll say go Irish to a reasonable degree then. As a USC fan, I can only take that so far.
Okay. We'll get some USC guys on the show too. You know, we'll.
Oh yeah, I don't have those kind of connections, and out in LA, it's not so simple to get. Dude, just getting to the USC facilities is like such a major chore. So forget all that. But no, this was beautiful. Thank you once again, Kendall, for taking your time to come and join me here tonight, talk some ball. Absolute blast. Really good time. And not only thank you for your time, but all of you out there watching and spending your time with us. Thank you for your time, because your time is the most valuable thing that you have. It is the one thing you cannot buy, the one thing you cannot replace. And I cannot thank you enough for sharing some of your time with us. And also, I want to give a special shout out to George Reister. He hosts a show on Mad Dog Sports Radio on Sirius XM. I realized that I actually kind of stole that sign off a bit from him, so I want to make sure I'm appropriately crediting it, because he says something I'm not copying verbatim, but it's pretty similar, but it's just so true. Your time truly is the most valuable thing that you have. So being able to have some of that spent with us means more, truly more than I can really express. Thank you very much. And good luck to you this week. We need to win together. And this meeting of the Fantasy Boardroom is adjourned.
Wanted to write fantasy is the play. Marking nothing but I tune every Friday. Strategies provided.